Hello everybody, this is Annabelle Howard from Big Fun Education. Thank you for watching. We hope we have a great 30-minute show for you today. The reason why I have these two incredible teachers with me today is that we share a mission. They've been doing some very interesting work for another nonprofit called Center for Teaching Quality. And we have an overlap in our missions with Big Fun Education, which is also a nonprofit. In that we both recognize there's a communication gap that is serious and sad in the education world, and that is that teachers are very often isolated in a classroom, less so now with the beauty of Skype and whatnot, Twitter and Google Hangouts, but they are essentially fairly isolated. Every teacher I've ever talked to has fantastic ideas, but they're not able to really get out their best practices as efficiently and as often as they can. So at Big Fun Education, we've started up this show called Common Core Conversation as, you know, a small part in trying to share best practices. And at the Center for Teaching Quality, they're doing a remarkable thing. They are allowing teachers to spend less time in the classroom so that they can really focus on developing meaningful, useful tools that they then share with teachers and educators. So that communication bridge is built. So important. Let's not all invent the wheel. Let's, you know, keep sharing what we've done. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is trying to share what we know about the best practices of educators communicating with parents. If you'd like to circle them, you'll find their names in the event description. Please do that. And the other person here is my partner in life and in work, Forrest Stone, and he's well worth following too. I've been following him for decades. That's another story for another time. But let's start by stirring the pot up a little bit, shall we, Forrest? Let's start with some questions we thought of this morning.
Yeah, we were talking about your work this morning, and it seems to strike us both as very important, but also it must make you encounter Common Core conversations of a different kind from the one that we're focused on having, because again, we're focused on having positive, productive conversations around the Common Core, but in working with parents directly and using those great tools you've developed, you must run into a lot of parents that could really be described as even hostile to the Common Core. Certainly that's got to be some percentage, because the political discourse around Common Core has indeed become hostile. And what our real question is at the top here would be, how have you seen that successfully dealt with? How have you had productive conversations come out when some parents may be approaching the topic with hostility from whatever source?
Well, Forrest, I found that parents, by and large, with the information era that we are immersed in, information travels quickly, and myths and misnomers about the new standards were traveling quicker than actual verifiable information about what's happening. And so when I recognized that, I realized that we needed to create something to communicate really what we were doing in the classroom and how these new standards were going to help students nationwide. And parents, I asked to really lend patience to them, because I don't believe it's a quick fix. It's not a magic wand that we're going to wave on our students and now all of a sudden they're going to be more prepared for the 21st century skills that we're embedding. I think it's something that's going to take a little bit of time, and something historically we have not really given things in education. It's time to really grab a foothold. So when I've talked to parents in my school, in my district, and really across the state of Florida, the one thing I have stressed is really give it the time and patience that it deserves.
And Rob, I want to piggyback on that, because you said something really, really key: communications. You know, and I find it ironic that in education of all things, communication is one of our weakest things that we do. We don't exercise it very well. And the reason I say this is back in 2012, the State Board of Governors came together to share strategies for talking about the Common Core. And what is the first thing they recommended? Share it with your parents, share it with the community, so that when they hear the messages in the political landscape, they are not confused. But I don't know very many communities that did that. But I think you're absolutely right. At this point, the way to undo some of the harm around the Common Core is simply to have those conversations, because good people are polarized for no good reason. Who's against high standards? Who's against standards that are going to prepare our kids to compete globally and get ready for college and or career that they've longed to do? Who's against that? But when you message that with things that say it's from the federal government, they're trying to control our lives, they're taking away states' rights, those are alarming things. And if I was a parent, I would be fearful myself. I am a parent, but I'm also an educator. I've been involved with the standards for a number of years, and so I know that they're beneficial for learning. And they're beneficial not only for learning, but for preparing my students for, just taking on the real world when they graduate.
Yeah, wonderful.
That's great.
Really good points. I think people do mix it up and become alarmed. It's easier to be alarmed than it is to absorb new information. And change is time consuming, and who has time? So I understand the knee-jerk reaction, but what if you were sitting in front of a parent who just seems overwhelmed? Could you give like one piece of information now that the viewers could take away that would calm that parent down to start with? So number one, calm down. And breathe. And number two, say you're not good at math like me, and the child comes home with this math that, oh Lord, I didn't get it the first time, now it's all different. What do you tell that parent? How do you support your kid? Because you don't want to show the kid that, oh, this is crazy, what are they doing? You don't want to be saying that. What should you be saying to your kid?
Well, one thing that I've brought to parents is the analogy of doctors, that we would not want doctors in 2014 to be using techniques from the 60s, 70s, or even the 50s. And education is being modernized right now. And we are implementing best practices and collaboration techniques like we've never had historically in education. So it does look different and it feels different. And parents, by nature, are uncomfortable with education looking and feeling different from the education that they had. So I asked them to support us by saying, hey, we're making things different. We're really offering paths to 21st century success with what we're doing now and modernizing our techniques. So please allow us to really experiment with what's working and learn from what's not and make those adjustments. And we really truly believe that kids are going to wind up being better prepared for college and careers than ever before because of this.
Yes, you're so right, Rob. I had that conversation with a parent who was very, very hostile in Arizona, and one of the parents had gotten riled up at a rally and wanted to talk to me about this because she noted that when I put my information on my virtual classroom, I tell what the standards are that underwrite that particular lesson. And so the three things I shared with her, first I shared pretty much what you had shared, Rob, that we are preparing students to be ready for their future. And she asked me a really good question. She said, well, what does that look like? And I share with her these three things. First, I said, what that looks like is we're honoring first that they are digital learners. Kids don't learn today the way you and I learned. Things are different. They're digital natives. They need to have those kinds of things in place in their learning to activate those synapses in their brain, okay? So they need to have that. Second of all, these students need 21st century skills. They're not just competing with people in their community, people in their state. They'll be competing for opportunities with kids globally. And last but not least, these standards have been vetted internationally. They have derived from the very best standards in high-performing schools. And so we're using very, very similar types of high expectations for our kiddos. So when your child leaves this school system, you can be assured that they will have 21st century skills that they're already aware of and developing very, very quickly. They will have that kind of behavior and learning that other students across the world have. And last but not least, these are people that will have an appreciation for the fact that the world is a very small place. And it's not just what's happening here in our community. They will be global citizens. And isn't that what we want for our children? So, and after that, the parent is not hostile. They're not necessarily pro-Common Core. I'm going to tell you the truth. But at least they understand that my mission is not to undermine their goal as a parent. If anything, my goal is to support their goal, their dreams that they have for their children, not to counteract that.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's a great point.
it's a very good strategy. I think that's wonderful, Cheryl. That you can get very caught up with your kid at your school and sort of feel threatened if anything changes. Take it personally almost. And I think that, yes, painting the picture is a very big global picture now. We're not trying to do anything to set anybody back. We're trying to bring everybody forward. I think that's a great response.
And I think I just build on that too, because I think that what Rob has said, what Cheryl said, and also we don't want to, by the way, lose time to show the materials that you've developed that are very compelling. And it strikes me that those materials also are based on some transferable principles. So what you've said about a response to a potentially hostile parent who might be hostile for various reasons to the Common Core, it's a great strategy, but it applies whether you're a park state, whether you're a smarter balanced state, whether you're even some of the states that are taking somewhat more independent route, because I think what the underlying nature of what you're saying is very true, is that all these different groups of experts and state leadership and national leadership have looked at the same research, and they may be interpreting it differently, but there is a greater understanding of what works in education, what works for student achievement, and how the community can support that, and how the institutions can support that, and how learning can be structured for the 21st century, how it can align with workplace and college readiness goals. Those things are common. So those comments really are universal, what you've just said, because even though there's some disagreement amongst the professionals, right, as there always are, just like different doctors would treat some of the same symptoms slightly differently, there's a lot of commonality, and it's very powerful. So thank you. I think your response to this is transferable to leadership, really virtually anywhere in the country.
What I want to try and do now is that little trick, the Hangout magic trick of screen share, so that I can bring up your amazing resources. There are two, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one seems sort of like a poster, and the other one seems like a reproducible that the teacher might use in a conference with a parent. Is that sort of it?
That is correct. Looking at the research last school year, when I served as a teacherpreneur with the Center for Teaching Quality, I chose to really dive into the Common Core as it was a brand new leveling field for education nationally, and there were a lot of concerns as we discussed already around it, and I really wanted to get to the core issue, which is communicating the benefits of the Common Core with the parents in the community. And as I spoke to parents, as I said, countywide and statewide and even nationally, their real concern is, how are these standards really going to help their child? That's really what parents want to know, regardless of where they're at and what's going on at their school. How is this going to help their students? So I created a little resource that teachers could use, and they could easily download it and print out right at their teacher desks and share with parents on what we were doing in the classroom and how these different activities and thought-provoking skills that we were embedding were creating 21st century skills that would be embedded in their knowledge and ability to be more prepared for college and careers upon exiting public school.
Okay, now I'm not sure if you're seeing what I want you to see. Are you seeing your poster there?
We're not seeing the poster yet. No, we're not.
Annabelle, what? Oh, there it is.
Wait a minute. Here it comes.
All right.
So could you talk us through that just briefly? We've got probably 10 minutes for this one and the other one.
Yeah, even a little bit less than that at this point. Yeah.
Sure. Sure. Here we see it says Common Core Paths to 21st Century Success. And anyone out there can actually go to teachingquality.org /core success, and they could, for free, they could download this, they could print it out, and they could share it with other teachers and parents, however they feel they could really use this resource. And where it says Common Core Paths to 21st Century Success, when you go to the website, you will see that there are different options for different states. For example, in Florida, we've made several adjustments to these standards, and we call them the Florida standards. So there's one that's specific for different states as they've renamed them and done different things. Well, looking at the poster, you see on the left-hand side, these are some of the things that are being done in classrooms from K through 12. We're creating innovative problem solvers, versatile readers, creative communicators, creative thinkers, resourceful learners, and investigative explorers. And what we do is we have different activities based upon our grade levels and the subjects that we teach that are really embedding these skills. And what do these paths create? Well, they're creating the 21st century college and career skills that we know businesses and colleges are looking for. And that would be adaptive problem solving, collaborative communicators, and a digital fluency that Cheryl was actually talking about earlier. And we found that teachers can take this little poster and they can actually explain to parents of their students of exactly what activities they're doing to actually have this occur in their classroom.
Well, Rob, I will tell you that I'm very, very grateful that you put this together. When I was able to locate this and put something together for parents, I showed this to my administrator, and she immediately, it captivated her, and she made copies. And so now every member of our staff has this, and the idea is to use your tool, one of your tools, Rob, to have these conversations with our parents. So I know how it works and how effective it is in a real-life setting.
Yeah, I was just going to appreciate this by saying that I was the executive editor of Weekly Reader, and I created one of Scholastic's magazines. So just as a classroom tool or a tool to be used in a parent-teacher conference, I think it's very effective because you've got this poster which kind of shows the concept, of how the Common Core activities should generate certain qualities in the learners, and how those align to career and college goals and characteristics that are needed in those environments. And then the second sheet, Annabelle, maybe you could go to the second item, because I love the way that the sort of reproducible gives teachers a way to specifically link evidence of their own classroom activities, student writing, projects, bulletin boards, all the sorts of things that teachers are accustomed to doing. It gives them a framework to align those to these desired learner outcomes and characteristics. So it really completes the picture. It's a very wonderfully practical, and it'll be up on the screen any moment now, resource. This is the reproducible that shows here's some of the activities we've done in our classroom that relate to these 6 desired outcomes. And here's how we might discuss how these will be useful to the students in the future. I really think it's just a really terrific resource. And once again, it is teachingquality.org/core success is where you find these extremely good resources.
Thank you, Forrest. And I actually took it to a different level this semester with my 8th grade language arts classes. I'm implementing student-led conferencing, where the students actually create a portfolio and they conference with their parents. I gave them this resource, and I asked the students in their collaborative groups to match up activities that we did within our classroom since August, and they were actually able to find different activities that we've been doing to show the parents that, hey, this is what we do in the classroom, and this is how it's helping us lead towards 21st century college and career skills. And so next week, right after Thanksgiving break, the students will be actually having these conferences with their parents and showing exactly what we're doing in the classroom. So I think it's very exciting.
So brilliant.
That's absolutely
Fantastic.
wonderful.
Because it's the student, too, that gets left out, isn't it? And
Yes.
there's nothing more counterproductive than a kid sitting there going, what's the point? What's the point? This isn't relevant. This isn't going to help me. You know, that's a huge barrier. So I applaud you for bringing the student in. And then that's a wonderful critical thinking exercise in itself. It's not busy work. That's fantastic. Communicating that what we're doing now is all about your future. And, you know, you look back, think back, what have we been doing? Now analyze that. How does that fit in here? Brilliant, Rob.
Yeah, that's great. I think you can
The whole idea of being reflective in their learning, and they
Yes.
become owners of that learning. And the other beautiful piece about students actually using this, it takes the curriculum and the assessment out of the conversation to actually what the student is gaining from engaging in those activities.
Well, that's great. It's like an athlete who's going to undertake a particular type of training. Let's say it's a golfer who's working on a particular part of his game. That exercise needs to be related to the goal that they have, and that's been one of the huge bits of research of late, having to do with how do humans develop expertise. It's not merely practice. It's not just voluminous practice. It's also practice that's aimed to achieve specific performance goals. So if the kids, sharing this with the kids, by the way, Rob, that's a total Annabelle Howard move. She when she started this stuff 30-some years ago as a classroom teacher in New York City, she opened the teacher's guide to the students because that's what they were interested in. And giving greater transparency to the students cracked some very difficult nuts, you might say, and enabled a new kind of bonding and a new kind of learning to emerge in that classroom in Washington Heights in New York City in 1980. So I think the same thing is your impulse to share this with the students, not to sequester the professional development or the parent-teacher conference aspects of school life from the eyes of the student is what this should all be about, you know.
Thank you, Forrest. I truly believe that transparency with our students as teachers is an important element in getting the students to understand the activities that we're doing, why we're doing them, and how they build on each other for their success.
Very much so. Makes it relevant, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yes, and we all want to be relevant. Right down to the kids.
Well, we should get into the final five.
Okay.
Final five.
Remember, put up your logo. We got to put up the logos now.
Trying to get all fancy.
And then unlock from yourself being blue boxed, and it'll become a lightning round.
I don't know. All right. I will try. Do you want to kick it off?
Okay. Essentially, the final five is something we developed for the Common Core conversation, where we take the final 5 minutes to ask 5 questions. So it's a kind of a lightning round, shoot from the hip. We'll try to keep an eye on the clock, but luckily this isn't broadcast television, so there'd be no nobody cutting us off at the end abruptly.
And no hook.
We were inspired by the famous Actors Studio interviews, and asked. And the first 2 questions are kind of similar. The first question is, "What's your favorite term or word?" And then your least favorite term or word. And of course, in this case, you could choose to make that a personal answer or one that relates to education and the Common Core conversation that we're having.
Can I be in it? Can I answer?
Yeah, you answer. Now it's really fast. So now you've each only got about 15 seconds, so quick, go.
Okay, I like my favorite words. I can't do one. Creativity and collaboration.
Okay.
My favorite word is innovation.
And I'm going to say transparency.
Forrest, you could have a word.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. I can't think of a word that fast. I would say convergences.
Mm.
I think there's been a lot of convergences in education of late between technology, research about learning, and some other things, all kind of coming together.
Very productive. Yeah.
Yeah, productive is a good word. Oh, so now what's everybody's least favorite word or term in this space?
I'm going to say summative testing.
Okay. Evaluation.
And one word, can't.
Yeah.
Don't, won't, any of that.
Well, I would say can't as well, with and without the apostrophe. So the idea of can't, dogma and that sort of thing, as well as the attitude that it cannot be done. So I'd say that I agree with that one. Okay, now question number 3. The first of a sequence of 3 questions is, what's your main piece of advice for a certain group? In this case, the first question is about, what about the people actually in the classroom? What's your main advice for teachers and students, the people who are actually in the classroom?
I would say to share both your successes and failures so that way we can all learn collaboratively and from each other.
My response is very similar. The power and the answers are within your professional learning community. So we need to buddy up. Peer observation and feedback. Let's observe what each other is doing and let the experts in our profession provide us with the feedback we need so that we grow. That's high-performing countries. That's what they do. Peer observation and feedback loops are very, very effective.
Yeah, and I would sort of piggyback on that to remind people to include the students in that. In other words, trust the students more. We all know that they're pretty handy with these iPads and Chromebooks and whatnot. And we also know that we're pretty overloaded with, wow, we just found out another 25 things we're supposed to be looking at. So I like the idea of making some, like Friday afternoon or some great time where the teacher might bring out a list of 25 things that I haven't had time to do this week. Kids, could you break up into groups and you've got 10 minutes to look at this app and report to the class. Is it worth it? Should we take it to the next level? Almost like one of those, The Voice or Idol, or, shall we let the app through and, let's vote on it. Let's make it democratic. Let's reason why we're going to use it or why not. And then put it to the public vote. Get the engagement, real, honest, authentic, and let the students speak more.
That's
great.
I
love you, Annabelle. You're so transparent with kids. I love that.
Yeah. That's right. Thank you. Okay, 4th question is similar. What's your biggest piece of advice for people who are professionally connected to education but not in the classroom? Administrators, policymakers, advocates, publishers, other developers of media. The role that I've been in mostly. So what's your biggest piece of advice for people not in the classroom but professionally connected to education?
I would ask them to be patient with the new standards. And I mentioned earlier that this is not a magic wand that we're going to wave at students and we're going to see an immediate change. It's going to be embedded over time through the school year as the kids work through the school system, and that we will see the fruits of our labor after they've actually experienced it for more than just 1 or 2 school years.
I see them as co-stakeholders in the future of our students, and so what I would encourage them to do is, if you have a question, ask the teacher. Teachers have the expertise, the experience, and they have the knowledge that they have been accumulating over long periods of time. They know how to address the issue. And so we should not be left out of the conversation. We should be at the table making those decisions right along with everyone else.
And in the interest of time and maintaining our objectivity as a nonprofit, we're not going to have Annabelle or me comment on the policymaker question.
I'm dying to say something. I have to. Please,
okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've always believed, as a small mini microdesk publisher, we're not Pearson, we're not one of those big guys, but we were self-publishing back in the 80s from a desktop Mac. And we always believed in testing every single thing that we did. I don't know who's got a pressing call, but someone. We always, as publishers, we always tested every single thing in the classroom and with real teachers. And again, it speaks to what we've been saying before with the feedback loop. You know, don't leave the teachers out. Crazy. These are the people who know everything.
Correct.
And then don't leave the kids out. They're the ones who knows what it's like to be a student at school. So I always tested. I created a board game and always tested that in different kind of populations, different populations as well. Always listen to them. And if you're lucky enough to get some parents who've got some time, listen to them as well. That's the publishers I'm saying. The publishers need to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Publishers and the consortia and all the policymakers. Now, finally, of course, we have the people who have no professional connection to education, parents, other citizens, no connection to education. They're not in the classroom. They're just people in the country. We've addressed a lot of our comments to parents, but go ahead and what's the number one thing you would say to parents and to other citizens who may not have any direct personal connection to education, but who live in a society, part of the foundation of which is its educational system?
I would tell them that these are research-based, modernized, best practice teaching techniques that we are implementing with more fidelity than ever before, and then to offer also that patience to allow us to use them so that way we will see the fruits of our labor as these students graduate from our high schools more successfully.
And I would piggyback on that to say that I see them as stakeholders as well. We're all connected. Mm-hmm. Whether you are professionals within the industry of education or not, these students will be your future employees. And so again, join shoulders with us, shoulder to shoulder. Let's work this out together. Instead of shutting down conversations and pointing fingers, why don't we absorb the responsibility together, resolve it together, and model for our kids the kinds of things that we want them to do, to be problem solvers, critical thinkers, and effective communicators. And I think resolving this problem together is a great way to model that.
Yeah, I agree too. And one other thing that we do with Big Fun Education is we have another community on Google+. It's called Reading Without Borders. And we invite people who are cruising on Google+ and who have 20 minutes to spare to partner up, buddy up with a kid somewhere in the world, whatever you like, whatever age you like. We'll pair you up with somebody to read one-on-one with a kid. Reading is the thing that we must keep encouraging, even if it's not our kid, it's not our grandchild, but read with someone. If the kids are coming over and they're suddenly, that it's time for snack and they need a drink or something, sit down and you're the supervisor for the day. Think about reading a story with them, with the neighborhood kids, or telling them a story from your own childhood or whatever, an oral tradition, or start a story, so I'm going to say one sentence, you say another one. But keep it educational. Keep reading. Keep caring. Keep caring. Don't switch off.
Very much so. Very much so. Good.
So I want to. It's now 1:36 here at this moment. So I want to thank you again, most sincerely. I'm so thrilled that we've all connected. This is what I love right now about education that has never happened before. I think it's a very exciting time. That there are more possibilities than ever because we can learn from more people than we ever could. Never dreamed I could speak with you guys today. It's really all coming true. It's a dream, I think. And the kids are very excited about the technology. Trust them. Thank you so much for coming and for sharing your wisdom. Really great. I'm even already looking forward to replaying this. So if you have any final words, please say them, or forever hold your peace.
Well, I want to
echo the thanks. Thanks.
Just to be here and talking about reading about borders, how about communicating without borders? Really appreciate the opportunity, Annabelle and Forrest. And Rob.
Thank you, Annabelle. Thank you, Forrest, Cheryl, and Big Fun Education. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay. Goodbye for now. Thanks, everybody.